If you rely on fear and division to hold control, you ratchet up fear as your power wanes. So you manufacture or amplify crises, you brand opponents as existential threats, and you demand urgent punishment, all while the deeper pattern goes unseen. The loud blaming and labeling and attacking and the hateful rhetoric after tragic events is a part of acceleration. It channels grief into factional anger and keeps people locked into the system's script. And then you can't get out of that script. Hi, I'm Angélique Letizia, a writer, director, and creator of the Call Cut Method. It's a tool to shift your frequency, rewrite your inner script, and realign you with the energy of your highest potential. This podcast is your behind-the-scenes pass to alchemizing that energy. So if you're ready to interrupt the script, reclaim your power, and write your story that you are actually born to live, you're in the right place. Welcome back to Call Cut with Angélique. I'm Angélique, and today we're going to discuss the divide and conquer narrative and the dangers of extremism. What is divide and conquer, right? It's a game, it's a strategy, and it is an ancient governance tool, right? From empires to colonial regimes, this tactic is very, very simple. Split people, divide consciousness, keep them fighting each other, and the ruling system remains in place. It is an old playbook, but the mechanics are the same. Distraction, division, escalation. When you know that you're being manipulated, that your consciousness is being manipulated, you have more power to decide how you are going to react. Because what you need to understand is these games need your participation. And for eons, humans have been unknowingly participating in it. Black versus white, man versus woman, haves versus have-nots. It goes around and around and around. It never ends. It is always a person that we must hate. And that person may change, that group may change, that culture may change. But the game doesn't change. It's always trying to elicit a negative emotional response so that we attack each other. So let's talk about why that is so effective. We need to understand that history moves in cycles, cycles of darkness, cycles of light. And the cycles of darkness give way to cycles of light, and the cycles of light give way to darkness. We are in the last vestiges of the zodiacal age of Pisces, which means we are in what the Hindus call the Kali Yuga. It's a long phase of confusion, of breakdown, that ultimately leads to the Satya Yuga, which is the golden age. Now, the Buddhists call this the latter day of the law. The Christians and Catholics call it revelation or end of times. It's all the same thing. It is the closing out of one zodiacal age as we move into the next, which we all know is the age of Aquarius. There are many people who will say we are already in the age of Aquarius. I will argue no. Typically, when an age begins, it begins with the golden age. It begins with being in our light, the return of the sun. And the return of the sun is the Christ consciousness, the Christos Sophia, the sun, the light, the S-U-N, Ra, whatever it is that you believe in. The return of the golden consciousness, the high-level consciousness where man understands peace, joy, respect, unity. Because we are coming to the end of this 26,000-year yuga, those who have been in control are starting to see the writing on the wall. And the writing on the wall is if humanity wakes up and humanity understands that they are way more powerful, that their consciousness is being hijacked, they don't have to fall into these traps of fear, of division, of separation, of fighting, of violence, and that they can step out of it. The divide and conquer strategy doesn't actually work as it is set up. Because, as Martin Luther King said, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. That is absolutely true. Hate cannot drive out hate. You can't meet violence with violence. They empower each other. They give each other more fuel. But that fuel doesn't elevate us toward the positive end of the polarity spectrum. It keeps us trapped at the lower end, in the lower vibrational energies, fear, lust, greed, materialism. Positivity is really important right now. It is important for you to keep calling cut on any scare tactic, on any fear narrative, on anything that makes you question another person, hate another person for no reason. You must call cut on this. You must rein in your own consciousness and look at yourself in the mirror and say, why am I falling for this? Why am I getting into this trap? You see, when power is threatened, those invested in preserving it get desperate. If you rely on fear and division to hold control, you ratchet up fear as your power wanes. So you manufacture or amplify crises, you brand opponents as existential threats, and you demand urgent punishment, all while the deeper pattern goes unseen. The loud blaming and labeling and attacking and the hateful rhetoric after tragic events is a part of acceleration. It channels grief into factional anger and keeps people locked into the system's script. And then you can't get out of that script. Seeing the strategy helps you avoid being herded into a manufactured narrative. And we have to look at these manufactured narratives because not only do we personally manufacture narratives based off our own traumas and dramas, but we collectively do that. If you fall into that trap of believing that there is an us versus them, and I mean this in any way, us versus them, then you fall into the trap. And if you fall in the trap, you must understand something that you cannot win this game by playing by their rules because their rules demand that you have a violent emotional reaction to one side or the other. Now, why do they want you to have that sort of reaction? Because when you act out emotionally, you justify the system to say, well, you can't be trusted. We need to take away your ability to speak publicly. We need to take away your right to free speech. We need to take away your right to travel. We need to take, because you're dangerous. There are many, many conversations that can be had without people ripping each other apart. But first, you have to see that ripping each other apart benefits certain people. It allows them to enact power narratives over us that they can't enact because at the moment, the Constitution gets in their way. At the moment. There's also some interesting power plays here if you do understand The Secret Destiny of America. And if you've ever read the book, The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do, especially as an American. It will give you some insight into how America was set up as a spiritual experiment. And it was an experiment that said, in God we trust, meaning that no government had authority over us above the creator. And this is really important. This is why America doesn't have kings, because the only king is the Christ, right? The God. That's it. And the experiment in America was to see, can humans have self-determination? Can they have spiritual equality? Can you take a bunch of human beings that are from different cultures, different backgrounds, different languages, different religions, and put them all into one space? And can they get along? Can they coexist peacefully? This is a great experiment. It's an amazing experiment if you really look at it for what it is. But it won't succeed if we fall into greed, materialism, and division. It won't. We can end tyranny if we can make this secret destiny of America real, because other countries will follow suit. If you've ever listened to Yuri Bezmenov, and I will put the link to his interview from the 1980s, he came here, he was ex-KGB, and he was being interviewed by a journalist here in the United States. And he was talking about how Russia was enacting ideological subversion on the American people for years. And if you listen to this guy talk, it's insane how everything this man said in that interview is what's coming to pass right now. And that it was all by design. Freedom of expression, spiritual freedom terrifies tyrants because they cannot control a sovereign being. They cannot control a being that knows its light. They cannot control a being that is fully embodied in its power. And so what you do is you take away that being's ability to ascertain knowledge. You dumb them down. You pump their heads full of violence and distraction and sex and drugs and rock and roll and entertainments in order to program them to be docile, distracted, lazy. If you look at the majority of people these days, they seek fame, they seek fortune. They are so tipped in the service to self, the me, 24-hour pageant of me. And they have gone very far away from unity consciousness, the consciousness that says, I am my brother, I am my sister. What happens to one happens to all. If you think about the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you, that is found in every single esoteric text. The Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. Well, why is it everywhere? Why is it so important? Because our consciousness will never elevate if we don't understand that we are all in the same boat. We are all made of flesh. We are all made of blood. We are all made of bone. The avatar really doesn't matter. It's the content of the character, the heart. That's what actually matters. And if we could get past the idea that we focus on our differences, that we focus on what's wrong with the world instead of what's right, that we're constantly self-hating, that we're constantly comparing. It's a comparison culture. Everywhere you look, people are comparing themselves to others. People are stepping over other people to rise. People are selling themselves out, selling their souls to the devil, giving the most important part of their beautiful spirit away in exchange for materialism. And materialism is fleeting. And most people don't realize that until it's too late. All the money in the world cannot buy happiness. All the beautiful women, all the hot men, all the fancy cars, all the big houses, none of it means anything. And it definitely doesn't mean anything if your consciousness is being hijacked by a system that wants to keep you down and uses materialism and uses violence and uses oh, you can't have that. Makes you feel like you always have to strive, that you're never good enough, that you can't just be beautiful and wonderful and amazing exactly as you are. It is not easy to wake up every day and to choose not to get sucked into the narrative. It is hard. They make it very hard. They make it difficult for you to look at someone who doesn't have the same consciousness as you do and say, that is my brother or sister. Yes, there are going to be violent people in all cultures. It doesn't matter who they are. Violent people are in all different cultures. Fantastic people, good-hearted people are also in all different cultures. The name of the game is not to be hyper-focusing on all the negative all the time, but to be finding the good, to do the good, to know in your heart that a lot of this is theater, a lot of this is theatrics, a lot of this is to hijack your consciousness. And the reason the system is clamping down a lot harder now than it ever did, and it seems to be accelerated, and that is because we are getting ready for the return of the sun. In many older myths, the golden age returns after the long night. And that image matters now because it reorients us away from fear and toward restoration. And this is not really a call to fantasy. It's a call to anchor into the archetype of renewal while we do this practical work of healing and discernment. Discernment, the sacred pause, the taking in of information, but not reacting to it. This is really, really important, and I will get to why. But before I get to that, I'm going to continue down the path. I know I speak in tangents. I absolutely do. My husband points this out to me. He's like, try to stay on focus. But unfortunately, my synapse is pew, pew, pew. And I am just one of those distracted humans that is all over the place, especially when I'm trying to communicate a thought. You can akin it to a child like, and then. That is 100% me. And I never grew out of it. Anyway, we are living in a time where you must always question what you see and what you hear. If we allow that divide and conquer narrative to continue to take us down, if we forget the teachings of those masters who came before us that say, do unto others, that remind you to treat your neighbor as your brother, this is all by design so that we can move humanity into this elevated state of consciousness, this Christ consciousness, the return of the golden age. It is not easy, but it is absolutely imperative that we get on the same page and that we tell ourselves, I am not going to fall for this. I am not going to start hating people based on different opinions or ideologies. I am not going to go attack people. I am not going to be violent. Violence justifies entrapment. The minute you go to the extreme of violence, you become a threat. And if you become a threat, the system says we need to protect against you. The very system that goaded you into this fight is the one that is going to profit and benefit off of you fighting with somebody who, when you really stop and think about it, isn't your enemy. So the question becomes, what can I do? If violence isn't the answer, if hate isn't the answer, which they are not, what can I do? I'm going to give you 3 practical moves that you can use the next time a headline tries to pull you into reaction, the next time somebody says something inflammatory that you think goes against your belief systems and feelings. And you can use these 3 things anytime. The first is to pause and protect. Really think about it. 9 times out of 10, when you take that sacred pause, you'll find that you are less inclined to react after that 30 seconds or a minute has passed. When people say to you, sleep on it, this is very good advice. Sleep on it. Before you want to react, before you want to tell somebody where they can go stick it, you really need to stop and think. We get out of that instant impulsive nature. When we're able to calm ourselves down and control our avatar and control our emotions and control our reactions, we come from a place of wisdom. We do not come from a place of reaction. So pause and protect. This is really important. 2, look for the evidence. And when you see evidence, question the evidence. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Really pull everything through your intuition machine and sit with it. Again, go back to 1, pause and protect. Don't react. Question. Is that true? Does that feel right? Does that sound right? Question. Who does that narrative benefit? If you could come up with a whom that narrative benefits, you really have to take pause. Because any narrative that benefits one side or the other, or the whole, if the sides are actually illusion, is something that we really have to look at. If we can acknowledge that truth is found in multiple perspectives, there is no such thing as absolute truth, but there is truth in everything, then we will have an easier time getting along with people who have a different consciousness than we do. We will not feel the impulse to destroy or annihilate anyone who doesn't think, feel, act, or speak the way we do. Number 3, find compassion. Refuse to allow victims to be weaponized. Refuse to trade your heart for a headline. Do not lower your energy. Do not stoop to any level. My guess is there's going to be a lot more of this, especially coming down into 2026. We're going to start seeing more situations and instances where we're going to have to really look ourselves in the mirror, call cut on our reactions, call cut on what we're looking at, and really dig deep. We're going to have a lot more of this. We're going to have a lot more division, attempts at division. Don't fall for that hateful rhetoric. Don't fall for the right versus left, for the us versus them. We do not have to play the game. You do not win by meeting violence with violence. You do not win by meeting hate with hate. You do not win by meeting fear with fear. You defeat the game makers by refusing to play the game. Many people have said to me that they don't feel that they have a chance, that it's over, it's too late. It's never too late. It's a war on consciousness. All you need to do is change your mind. Don't look at these situations as anything you have to get emotionally invested in. Don't scream at somebody who has a different idea. Don't tear somebody down. Don't let people harvest your energy. Don't let them have it. I am not going to engage. This is a game. This is not real. You are the person who is in control of your mind, of your thoughts, of your feelings. You have more power than you think. We are not passive observers of big systems. We are participants in consciousness. And every time we refuse to play into division, every time we choose curiosity, compassion, and facts over fury and fear, we weaken the game and we help anchor in a new reality. Knowledge gives you power, not to fight, but to respond with wisdom. While all of this can sound gloom and doom and terrifying, this is the death rattle of a system that cannot survive the next cycle intact. And that's terrifying for those who are invested in control, but it is hopeful for those of us who are invested in love, life, and just living our lives on a day-to-day basis. We do not vanquish darkness by matching it blow for blow. We turn on the light. Remember, friends, you are the writer, the director, and the lead in your story. Call cut on all scripts that make you small, and always keep shining. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angélique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.